So many people really screw up what marketing is. There's way too much in business ivory tower intellectualism. The first thing that pros do is they choose an undeniable shift in the world, in human behavior. We only trust people who've done the thing that we want to do. You need to understand who surrounds your customer. Who do they trust? Talk to them, figure it out, and then try marketing with them.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Jared Fuller. Jared's an entrepreneur. He's a student of B2B marketing. He's the author of the new book. It's called Nearbound. You can see it there if you're watching on the YouTube channel. You can see it. Beautiful looking book. He's run partnership marketing at PandaDoc, at Drift, a bunch of other companies. He's got a podcast. It's called the Nearbound Podcast, and is the chief ecosystem officer of Nearbound. You may know it previously as Partner Hacker and Reveal. He's done a bunch of really fun stuff in the partnership space. Has had some success with his book. The guy on my team, Pedro, who runs all of our partnership marketing, was like, Jared's book was everywhere. So you got to ask him about it. We got to talk about it and how he launched it and all that good stuff. So we got a lot of fun things to unpack. Jared, welcome. Great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So I guess first things first, we'll set the stage on the topic as a whole, and then we can dive into the specific book and how the behind the scenes of how you did it. For people who don't know, what is partnership marketing? And this might be a tougher question, but how did you get so good at it? How does one become good at partnership marketing?
So I'll kind of answer this two ways. Like the first thing is that there's an undeniable shift in the world, and that's that how that we buy has changed. I'm going to give you some one-liners that are just seminal. Like, write these down. They need to stick with you. Trust comes from helping people reach their promised land. Ironically and paradoxically, though, we only trust people who've done the thing that we want to do. That's a problem, especially when, like, I'll give you an example, Chandler and audience. I was giving a presentation to about 200 CMOs. And these are big, big name CMOs. It was Latany Canance, the CMO of Six Sense, one of her Coffee Talk series. And I asked the CMOs in chat and said, hey, someone from the audience, write down the persona that you sell to and you market to. Like, who's your customer? And they said, someone wrote down CIOs and enterprises and manufacturing. I said, fantastic. So how many marketers on your team have ever been a CIO? Do you see the dichotomy? Do you see the duality? Right? If we only trust people who've done the thing that we're trying to do, then what gives us the right to talk about it? So it makes way more sense to market with someone who's done the thing that you're trying to do, right? Vendors, partners, customers, advisors, etc. And I think, to answer your question more specifically, get really good at making those people famous. Treat your marketing like a media company. Whenever you're trying to market with someone, don't be like, hey, can you go do all this marketing and then send me leads? Like, that's not how it works. Like, write LinkedIn posts for them in their voice. That's the best LinkedIn post they've ever written. Put events where it's like, wow, that experience and mission and vision was just incredible. Like, treat everything like a media company. Make yourself and your company and your marketing organization the most helpable company and people in the world to tap into the trust of the voices that your buyers already trust. And what's the thesis of Nearbound? Well, it's surround. Unlike outbound, which is targeting, inbound, which is attracting, Nearbound is about surrounding buyers with the voices that they already trust. And then whenever one of your sellers gets on a call with them, guess what happens? Oh, I've heard about you from everyone, right? People they already trust. That's how modern marketing works.
That's good. I was just writing that down. Nearbound equals surround. So I want to unpack that in a little bit when we talk about your specific book. And it's funny because that's exactly what Pedro said. It's like the book was everywhere. So implementing this, get a little bit meta here, implementing the strategy with the book itself. But I guess before we get there, why did you even write a book? Like, what was the purpose behind this book, and how did this book fit in with your brand and just kind of your partnership marketing strategy?
Yeah, so the book was really the summation of so many different. And then my little guy's coming in; he's sick today, so of course I told you inevitably he was going to hop on camera, and of course he did. So that's Adam, everybody. But the reason why I wrote Nearbound the book was a summation of kind of many years worth of work. So I started a podcast called the Partner Up Podcast, and I did that as a cheat code on learning. So I interviewed the best partnerships people, on the planet, right? And I learned, I'm like, how do people do this kind of at scale? Well, unbeknownst to me, people started listening to it and it became the number one podcast in partnerships. I'm like on, it's now known as the Nearbound podcast. You know, I kind of rebranded everything, but what ended up happening is like when you're building a media company and you're just really curious. I talk about in the book, in the Nearbound mindset section, this section, yeah, go ahead, buddy. Sorry about that. Sick kids. I think hopefully we're all used to that from the pandemic. I talk about in the Nearbound mindset chapter, the three C's that I think are very important: curiosity, courage, and conviction. And for me, how do you start anything? You have to be insanely curious. So in the podcast, I decided, okay, I'm getting all of these interviews and all of this social LinkedIn content. I'm going to start a newsletter. So me and my co-founder, we started Partner Hacker Daily. So I had Partner Up Podcast, I had Partner Hacker Daily. It was a daily newsletter on partnerships, not weekly, daily, right? I had to learn. I was voracious. And then I was like, this is all catching on. So I got some courage and I was like, I'm launching a media company. And I called it Partner Hacker, just like kind of, role models and mentors. There was Sales Hacker that came before it, Growth Hackers, right? There's some lexicon and stuff that was established behind it, because partnerships is a new motion to really, go mainstream. Now, the world's biggest companies use it very well, but for the mainstream, not as much. And then we were one of the fastest growing B2B media companies of all time, and we were acquired by Reveal. So that's when I had my conviction, right? Curiosity, courage, conviction. I'm like, this is going mainstream. And I have the largest library of content on B2B partnerships, like on the internet. I need to write the book, but it can't be called Partner Hacker. Like we have to create that category. So I'm a big believer in the category creation plays, play bigger and stuff like that. And then category creation in general. I'm also a big fan of Andy Raskin and his strategic narrative work. Being a Drift alum, Andy covered a lot of the work that we did on creating the conversational marketing category. I was like, what is it? Well, Reveal CEO Simon, he called it Nearbound right before we got acquired. And I was like, that's the word. And I'll tell you something, folks, language is a network effect. Like the second I heard that word, I was like, that's it. Outbound, inbound, nearbound. Outbound equals target. Inbound equals attract. Nearbound equals surround. So I bought nearbound.com. And I knew the second that I bought nearbound.com, and because we were already in due diligence of being acquired, I was going to rebrand Partner Hacker to nearbound.com. I was going to put the newsletter and the podcast and the events, and the book was going to be called the Nearbound book. Yeah, so that was really that was kind of the story. Like cool. The book had to come out after we published all of that other content.
I like that, and I like the concept of creating, I guess, a framework or a way of wording, and even just the outbound is target, inbound's attract, nearbound surround. And that, I think you just start to instantly understand what the concept is, but then also own a concept or a key phrase in the mind of people who use it. And so, another example is a buddy of mine here in Austin, Hal Elrod with the Miracle Morning, right? And so it's a morning routine, but now people will say that use it, oh, I'm doing my miracle morning, right? So you've created a term that people use as a noun or a verb or whatever as they're using it. So I guess a follow-up question on that. I think a lot of folks in the software world would say, hey, a book doesn't really make sense as part of my business growth strategy. So why did it make sense for you? And how would you look at that if you were other folks, either I'm a head of marketing at a software company, I'm a CEO at a software company, like using a book to do something similar for their software company?
Well, what I would say is, there's this difference between, I'll call them builders, geniuses, and pros. There's like kind of three types of entrepreneurs. So I'm generalizing, but follow me on this. Builders have a hammer and they're looking for a nail, right? They're like, here's my product, here's my idea, here's my thing. And then they want to write about it. They want to talk about it, kind of qua them. And that's fine. That's probably 80% of entrepreneurs, 90%. And sometimes they get lucky or sometimes they are just tenacious enough. So like you can go, tell everyone about this book and just do it. Here's my product. Here's my thing. Good luck. I've done that. And I've recognized how hard it is to be a builder. The others are geniuses, right? The second one. And geniuses, they create a 10x technological innovation that kind of changes everything. And then you can get things like white papers and industry. Oh, here's how all of this is changing because of this core technological innovation. That's not me. I couldn't do that. The thing about geniuses, though, is they quickly realize that great product never beats great go-to-market. And that, like, man, great. It's just true. It's just true. Look at HipChat versus, Slack, like PLG, and then layering an enterprise sales motion on top of it. Like Slack destroyed HipChat, right? Made Atlassian shut it down. But then there's this third one, and I call those pros. What do pros do? I learned this from David Cancel, the CEO of Drift, which was sold to Vista Equity Partners for 1.2 billion in like 4 years, right? And was, if you were on LinkedIn circa 2018, 2019, you know the name Drift. We were everywhere. what David taught me was the first thing that pros do is they choose an undeniable shift in the world, in human behavior, right? And what is happening to all of our behavior as a result of that? And what separates, kind of a la Andy Raskin, the winners from the losers? What needs to be true in this world? You have to have something that is like that big, right? So like when I wrote Nearbound the book, the first 3 chapters, it's not just some product marketing, right? It's not just about my idea. I'm talking about the world. I'm referencing, the partnership between SpaceX and T-Mobile, on how like there will be billions of new lines of communication opened up vis-a-vis a partnership, a new telecom company partnering with the world's fastest growing telecom company that's literally going to transform internet access as we know it. If you don't believe in partnerships, you're missing the point, right? Like there is these undeniable shifts. I'm trying to bring you into the future with me. So that's the difference though. Pick the undeniable shift, right? The pros, they pick the undeniable shift. Pick the market first, not your product first, not your company, not what you want. What's
That's
happening
good.
in the world? And
Yep.
then you can write about that. And what I would say is you need to have the audience. Undeniable shift in the world. Who is it affecting the most? What is your earned secret? What gives you the right to talk about this? Right. And so what gave me the right to talk about this? I'd done hundreds of podcasts. I've done hundreds of newsletters. I've done dozens and dozens of events. I've run partnerships from, nothing to unicorn status at 2 companies. Make sure that you have the right to do that. Undeniable shift. Who is it affecting? What's your earned secret? And then own the audience. Be a media company, right? So that way, whenever you write the book, I didn't pay a publisher. I didn't go spend $350,000 on Wiley like someone else in my industry I know did, right? And we still out distributed this person because we had tens of thousands of people that were just waiting to buy it. And we hit #1 bestseller status in every category on Amazon. And business being the top, top level category. We didn't get #1 there. We were #2, only second to Elon Musk's biography. So like, I feel like, we did a pretty good job.
That's awesome. So, hey, I want to back up a second and zero in on something you said a second ago. You said good go to market beats good product every time. Tell me more about that. Why? I guess maybe first for people who don't know, what is go to market, or what do you consider good go to market, and why does that beat product? I think the prevailing narrative or thought is that, hey, the best product's going to win over a long enough time period. The best product's going to win. So it sounds like, yeah. So
I'll flip
unpack
this.
that.
So Chandler, do you use Slack?
Yes.
Okay, I bet a lot of folks here use Slack as well. You probably think that Slack is a better product than most that are out there. Have you ever like been invited to a Microsoft Teams meeting or been forced to use Teams before?
Yes.
Okay, so Slack is like in Zoom or like better products than Microsoft Teams, in your opinion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so from 2017 to 2019, Microsoft Teams went from virtually 0 users to 117 million versus Slack's 12 million. Great product never beats great go-to-market, and great go-to-market never beats great ecosystem. Microsoft was able to put Teams, and now it's hundreds of millions of users. Like it's so far and away bigger than Slack, even though in the startup world, we kind of like Slack. It's like, hey, it's cooler as Zoom. Teams is eating everyone's lunch. Why? Because Microsoft has an ecosystems of partners, distributors, vendors, suppliers that they just roll it all up into their ELA and get that distribution for them. But great product never beats great go-to-market. HipChat was an incredible product. GChat was good. We all used to use GChat. It was fine enough, right? And you're like, oh, Slack was cooler. Nah, Slack had great go-to-market, right? They had the marketing, they had the vibe. It was PLG. Slack became a good company because they layered on sales on a product-led motion, right? So like Atlassian and some of these other companies, they didn't have the go-to-market, right? So go-to-market is simply the combination of marketing, sales, and success. Right. And, marketing, sales, success. And if the product alone, it's not enough. Like look at MarTech. We're talking, about self-publishing and books and marketing. In 2011, Scott Brinker's MarTech landscape, it had what, 200 companies? It's like 13,000 now. There's like 13,000 MarTech companies in like what, 12, 13 years? That's pretty wild. Right. So I think it's even an evolution beyond great product never beats great go-to-market, but great go-to-market never beats great network effects, great ecosystem, great partnerships, as evidenced by the Atlassian, HipChat, Slack, Teams example.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about kind of the content creation process for your new book, for the Nearbound book. We were kind of jamming before this. You talked about how you create a lot of public-facing content as a way to both build an audience prior to launching the book, and then also as a way to kind of test the concepts. So can you walk us through that? What did that look like? The process of creating the book, and how did you use that to build buzz for the ultimate launch?
I mean, I knew I was going to write a book probably for a couple of years. I just, built it slowly along the way. And then it was like, okay, September of last year, we're going to launch the book by Q1 of whatever time. But there was a year and a half of work that went into that. And if you really think about it, probably 2 years prior, to create something great. So like, if you just want to go write a book while writing a book, I'd say my opinion is good luck. Like, by all means, go for it, shoot for the stars. If you never shoot for the stars, you'll never hit for the top of the trash can lid, as I like to say. And, that's not to say, like, if I would have launched a book in the beginning, it would have fell on deaf ears. There's no one listening. I had no influence. So the process for me was pretty straightforward. I knew what podcast episodes took off. I knew where I learned, right? Where I was like, that was amazing. So I was able to look at a library of 150 podcast episodes. I was able to look at a library of hundreds of newsletters, of hundreds of articles that had been written, thousands of social media posts. Which ones went viral? Which ones, had the most views? Which people had the best stories? Right. I had all of this content, and I was able to work with a team to help me start to put together some scaffolding on all of this. And I didn't use ChatGPT. I think this is truly generative content, in that, like, no one's really put together a book like this before. It wasn't something that was GPT ready. I wasn't just saying something similar in a new way. I was saying something new. So that process of building a media company gave me the scaffolding, and I'm really good at putting together like the narrative. So like, I knew the chapter structure, and that was the most important part to give my team to help assemble. Like, hey, what was the most viral blog post about this? What was the most watched YouTube videos about this? What was that story? And because I was the person creating that content, they were able to go look at it and go, okay, bring it over. And I go, okay, great. I know exactly what needs to happen here. And one of the things that I did that's actually could be tech enabled is that I think is a great marketing hack, so to speak, is what I would do is this is a great line from Seth Godin. It kind of flies in the face of what he was saying, but I like it anyways. He says there should be no such thing as writer's block, because there's no such thing as talker's block. And I love getting on podcasts just like this, like, right? Like, I can talk through these things so easily in a conversational manner, but the blank page problem is real. Right. Just starting with the blank page is like, that's the hardest thing for me to do. So what I was able to do is like, okay, we're talking about, the opening chapter, trust is the new data, right? Here's everything that I kind of know on that. The team would go out and find some stuff. Then we'd have a conversation, and I would record that entire, I did probably 12 1-hour sessions with the team, 1 hour for each chapter, where they're using my words, they're transcribing it, and I'm walking them through exactly what needs to happen in that chapter. And then they would kind of, put that together. And I say team, like, this is not like a big giant initiative. We're talking about like a part-time freelance editor, right? Like,
Cool.
you probably need someone to help you with writing your book, right? There's plenty of great people on Fiverr and, Upwork and all of those things. So like, really my editor. And then that was really the process of like writing the book. And once I started to get a very rough idea of like, okay, we're like at 120 page manuscript, I was able to go through beginning to end, and just turn that into a full-fledged, multi-100 page book that like, has really resonated with the industry.
Cool. I hope you're loving this episode so far. So if you're serious about writing and publishing your book, we would love to chat with you and help create a custom plan. All right. So all you need to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. Schedule a 45-minute consultation with one of the experts on my team. All right. Let's implement what you're learning in this episode, and let's see how we can help with your book. Go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. And so it sounds like, hey, got multiple years of posts around this subject. Then a very important piece of turning this into a book was creating the outline, and you called it the scaffolding of the book, right? And then saying, all right, what goes where, which pieces, which stories resonated, which concepts were really good, all that stuff. Then working with an editor to talk out kind of one chapter at a time, the core
and
concepts.
highlight specific stories. So like, one thing I will call out is there's 110 companies referenced in the book and 107 people. It's not just me, right? Undeniable shift in the world. Where's your proof? Robert Cialdini, social proof, right? Like, I'm telling stories of other people that aren't just me.
That's good. When I'm sure that's probably strategic as well, because that ties into the partnership strategy, I'm assuming, for the book, which is you then being able to reach out to those 107 people in 110 companies and saying, hey, I featured you in this book. You might want to mention it to others.
Right, exactly. So like, if you go look at me on LinkedIn, Jared Fuller, like, I have like 12,000 followers, like nothing crazy. It's, pretty mediocre in terms of quote unquote influencers. I wouldn't call myself an influencer, but I would call myself an influencer of influencers, right? Let that sit with you. Like, I was able to get, Jill Rowley, who basically put social selling on the map, 275,000 followers. Like, I don't control Jill. She's a fully autonomous goat, like, she's one of the best of all time. So like, I had Jill put a section in the book. I worked really closely with her. I've had her on the podcast. We built a lot of trust. So when the book was coming out, it was inevitable that, hey, here's the LinkedIn post. It's like, boom, get a big pop. And she talks about it on the podcast and events that she goes to. And that's just one example, right? I was able to make it really easy to have this library of people that I've already had on my podcast. I've already talked to, I've built a relationship with, and then made it very easy for them when the book launched to go live. Right. And for them to share and be proud of the work, because it wasn't just, hey, I'm promoting this book. It's, well, I've talked to Jared. I've been on his show. I've been in his newsletter. I've appeared at his event. And I know he's the most geeked out person in the world for this concept.
Cool. That's smart. So I think that we're kind of getting into some of what I wanted to talk about how was the book everywhere during the launch. And part of that is through, posts, I'm assuming creating the content then almost like reverse creating the content out of the book and saying, hey, here are all the things I'm going to post leading up to it. I've got these 107 people and 110 companies that I can reach out to that are then mentioning and plugging the book as well. What else did you do? I mean, Pedro was like, dude, this is everywhere. It was everywhere. And he's obviously a student of partnership marketing as well. So there's probably a lesson in there too of being everywhere for your target reader. But what else worked well?
Yeah. So, one of the first, where I first got my first taste of marketing was actually in direct mail. Like, when I say direct mail, I mean direct mail. And this was specifically, like I'm in college and I'm doing political donations. Right. So like, this is an interesting one because the guy that taught me this, I won't mention his name because he's a very controversial figure, extremely controversial. But this guy sends out hundreds of millions of direct mail pieces, every month.
Wow.
And what he told me is he said, Jared, I'm going to teach you a unique ability to take a man who just got home after a hard day's work on the farm. And he's going to go to his mailbox. He's going to get his mail. He's going to bring it home to his wife and his kids. He's going to open the letter from me. And then he's going to grab his heart. And then he's going to grab his wallet and he's going to cut me a check. And I was just like, okay, but this guy could write direct mail that like, because what are you selling? You're literally selling nothing. You're convincing people to send you a check with literally no return. Right. So like in this direct mail type of way too, you realize that political stuff is omni-channel. It's not just direct mail, it's PR and news coverage. And one of the biggest things I learned early on in my marketing career was to extend the PR cycle. Right. Don't just, hey, boom, everything's here and people weren't aware of it. Right. Like extend the PR cycle. So one of the things that I did is I had the Nearbound Summit. I had 5,000 people coming together for a 4-day event. And it was leaked that this book was coming out there. Right. I have the podcast and I have the newsletters. And then it was like, boom, we launched nearboundbook.com. Okay. There's a countdown and a ticker. Then I leaked a chapter. Then I said, trim down manuscripts to like all sorts of different people being like, hey, here's what's going to be in it. So not the full thing, but like kind of started to leak pieces here and there. And then we went and asked, I looked at all the people who had read the most Nearbound content ever. And that was crazy, who had like watched the more content than anyone. We had over 200 people that had watched more than 50 hours of content. Right. And it was like, whoa. I mean, that's like someone's watched me talk for 50 hours. There's 200 of them. It would be silly of me to not send them a copy of the manuscript in advance. Sure. Consequences be darned. Something gets leaked. I don't care. It's 2024, And I said, hey, here's an advanced copy of the manuscript. I'd love when the book dropped if you could write me a review. So that way it's honest too. I'm not asking them to write me a review the day it launches with, not having read it. Right. So then the day it launches too, you get dozens of 5-star reviews, hits the bestseller list. Right. And then you're posting that and you're like, oh yeah, we're going there. I think the other thing that I love doing too is we did a live launch event. That we ran ourselves. And I brought in Sangram Vajre, who was the guy that created ABM, right? He wrote multiple bestsellers. And we had this fun, like hour-long event where it was like the countdown. Okay, it's live on Amazon now. Go get the copies. The orders are flying off the charts. It was like a telethon, right?
Yep.
So we got hundreds of people to register for that. I mean, extend the PR cycle, the hype machine, and then weeks after, and I didn't just publish the book. And then like 2-3 weeks later, the audiobook dropped, right? So like you kind of see the sequence of events where this book was part of the marketing strategy for 5 months and continues to be, because then now I'm on the book tour and I'm taking dozens and dozens of copies with me. And it's this asset that keeps on giving.
Cool. I love that, man. That's super smart. Love the strategy behind that. And just the concept of extending the PR cycle. That's fun. Man, there's a couple ways I could take this. We can talk a lot of book stuff. but we're running out of time, and I'm like, I want to ask a couple partnership marketing questions as well. So maybe let's start there. So I want to set up a case study. This is totally a selfish question, but hopefully it'll be beneficial for the audience as well. Is partnership marketing at work? My company, selfpublishing.com. So partnership marketing is one of our fastest growing channels. Pedro, who I already mentioned, is just awesome. I mean, he's killing it, growing the channel. We did 5 million last year from that channel. I think the year before that was 2 and some change. They should do 8 or 10 million this year from that. The company selfpublishing.com. Obviously, we help people write and publish books. Our key channels, just kind of teeing this up. We'll come in and do webinars for people. We'll come in and speak at events. So we've got a speaking team, and so we're like speaking at 3 events this weekend, and the speaking team's the ones. So we kind of like built out this part. That's what our partnership marketing engine looks like. If you were us, how would you reconstruct that, or how would you build that to scale to 25 million a year plus as a partnership marketing department within the company?
Dad, you have to
Yeah,
get Moses.
my son is telling me how I have to buy him a Mosasaurus, so apologies for that. I will. So, he's so cute. I'm like dying, trying not to answer him right now, but I'm going to get to your question as well, which is, how to go about the partnership marketing, with this case study, right? And to do these things. And here's what I think is more important than just publishing a case study by itself, is actually telling the story. And I actually break this down in the book pretty well. There's like what people don't realize is that the job to be done in marketing is kind of changed. And I'll talk about this a little bit, let's see, here we go. Perfect. I knew exactly where it was. I think there's 4 different roles in partnership marketing that people don't think about, or in just marketing in general. There's journalists, there's content creators, there's partners, and there's customers. So that's why I call it Nearbound marketing and not just partnership marketing. Okay, so what I mean by journalists, the job to be done is story finding, right? Like we forget these things. I say to treat yourself like a media company. What's the story? Where's the stories in the market, right? And that's what you lead with. You got to lead with the story. Then the second thing is creators. What's the job to be done for creators? It's story spreading, right? The journalist is to find the story. The creators are so don't tell the creators to find the story, right? You're coming to them and be like, I got this scoop. There's this thing that happened, right? Here's the thread. And then the partners, the job to be done is story connecting, right? How to bring that together. And then finally, customers is the story validating, right? How did this all work? So I think that's really how to think about this. And you can apply that to any channel in your marketing. You can apply it to events. You can apply it to social. You can apply it to case studies. You can apply it to reviews. You can apply it to literally every single channel. Make sure that you're, finding the story. You're having folks talk about it that have influence in the audience. You're having partners that are connecting that to the bigger picture, and other companies that care about it, have a wider audience, and then customers that always validate it.
Got it. And so in your mind, what do you feel like needs to change going from, 5 million a year to 8 to 10, or even up to 25 million a year? Like what needs to change in how we think about, I guess, Nearbound marketing, not just the partnership side of things. And that might even be some of the answer within it, both how we look at it and think about it, but then also how would you structure that team, and what would be the key components of that kind of Nearbound team at a 25 million a year, 10 to 25 million a year kind of acquisition arm?
I think the word that I love to use the most, there's 2 ways to think about this. You can build a Nearbound motion as an underlay, or you can build a Nearbound motion as an overlay. An underlay is kind of like building your marketing team ground up, market first. I think so many people really screw up what marketing is. What's the root of marketing? It's market. It's market. It's what's happening in the market. People say go to market. I like to oftentimes even say live in market, right? So how do you pull things from the market towards you? Like how do you build and connect out there? And I think that just mindset shift is so important to recognize. Why? Because there's way too much in business ivory tower intellectualism, right? We want to spreadsheet our world into existence. Well, if I can just get the funnel to work this way, I'm going to make this much money. Guess who doesn't care about that? Your customers. They don't care about your spreadsheet. They don't care about your model. The map is not the territory. I don't care how good of a map you have of my home mountain range, the Sandia Mountains in New Mexico. Is it reflective of what's actually happening in those mountains? No, there's no deer or elk in your map. And even if you were to plot every single animal, guess what? The next day it's different, right? And I think the remit and the underlay mentality is like, there's this quote from an Austrian economist I really love, Frederick Hayek. It's called The Fatal Conceit. And I think economists and market, economy, market, these words are so close. Marketing, it's right there. We need to understand these basic principles, the praxeology and human action. He says this quote on The Fatal Conceit of, The curious task of economics is to demonstrate to us how little we know about what we imagine we can design. How much marketing today really feels like just some ivory tower intellectualism where we're like spreadsheeting the world we want into existence, when what's happening in the market is the story. What
Hmm.
customers say is the story, how they feel, like live out there, build out there. That's the
Hmm.
underlay. The overlay is, okay, you got your model, you got everything happening. Just every single thing you do, why would you ever do it alone? That's my overlay mentality. It's like, you're going to say something, why would you ever do that alone? A social post, a review, an ad campaign, whatever it is, do it with people that your customers already trust. Because if you're marketing these things to your audience that you already own, guess what? You're the only audience. It's never going to grow. Like
Hmm.
the only way to reach outside the walls of your that's not your own email list or your own social following is what? To pay for it, to rent it.
Hmm.
But whenever you partner, that's where there's a flywheel. So
Cool.
it's just creating stuff together too. Like
Hmm.
one quick last statement: Databox, Pete Caputa, 170-person company, fully profitable, not venture, no big venture dollars. They generate 1 million hits a month on their website with a marketing team of 3 people, merely by creating content with 4,000 people in 1 year.
What does that mean?
So every single blog post that they did, they'd interview 4, 5, 6 people. Every single social post, they're co-creating it.
Mm.
Like the marketing
Oh,
team of three
interesting.
people. So like what I mean is every single thing that Databox's marketing team did, they did with other people. Meaning every
Mm.
single time that they did something in marketing, they were
Mm.
inherently reaching an audience that was bigger than the one they already owned.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So like attach it to everything, overlay it to all of your marketing activities. Why would you ever create content alone is kind of my point. Or if you have
Hmm.
a story worth sharing, why would you just market it to your list? Go get other
Hmm.
people to share it and write it in their perspective. And
Hmm.
that's the power though. 3 people, 1 million hits,
Hmm.
nothing paid.
That's wild. Who are those 3 people? I want to hire them.
Well, John Bonini he has really good content. So like John's amazing. Like he's a prolific
Cool.
podcast host, writer. Like John's, he's one of the goats. He was the VP of marketing at Databox. But
Cool.
like, yeah, it's not like he had a giant team.
Yeah,
So
that's
check out John
incredible.
Bonini of really good content. So he has a community for it.
Sweet. Okay, really good content. Love it. I'll take a note on that. Well, I'll ask one final question, and then we'll wrap up. What would be kind of your parting piece of advice for people looking to, let's say, implement the Nearbound strategy from the book for the first time in their business? What's kind of the on a bumper sticker fastest path to getting their first win?
I think the first thing to do, like, is to make sure that whether you're marketing, you're selling, or you're serving, it's like go talk to your top customers. Go just talk to them. And let's say your top 10, your top 20. Who do they already trust? Who are the vendors? What events do they go to? Who are the agencies or consultants or providers? And that's a list. That's not some hypothetical thing, right? Who do your top customers trust? Where are their watering holes? Where do they go to quench the thirst of knowledge for your industry or your space or your voice? That's your list. If you can't market with the people and win with the people that your customers already trust, you don't have a job in 2024. Like I'm not kidding. Like go out there and you need to understand who surrounds your customer. Who do they trust? Talk to them, figure it out, and then try marketing with them. And then try to be the most helpable person in the room when you're marketing with them. Help them create content, make it easy. And I would say make your partners famous, right? Treat yourself like a media company. And again, it's just understand who surrounds I can tell you who surrounds my customer. I can tell you exactly who they trust. The voices, the individual people, the companies, the events,
Mm.
the magazines, the newsletters, the podcasts, and I market with all of those people. And then the customers that I want, that I don't have, that I'm like trying to expand in a new market. What do you think I do? I go, well, I think the top 100 accounts I'd want. And then I go talk
Mm.
to those top 10 and I figure out who do they trust? Right. Oh, that's a different podcast. That's a different newsletter. That's a different event. That's a different software vendor. That's a different agency. Live in market. Your company spreadsheet will not math the world you want into existence.
Love that. Drop the mic. That's awesome. Jared, this has been fun. Where can people go to find out more about you, to get the Nearbound book, or wherever would be most helpful for people to go?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. The audiobook's out as well. I actually did that. We didn't get into that too. One parting piece of advice for self-publishing: don't commit to a publishing date until if you're going to do the audiobook yourself, because you find you end up doing a lot of edits. I'm sure you've experienced that, Chandler. So talk to the folks at self-publishing; they can help you. It's definitely a hard thing to do on your own. Don't go pay Wiley. Go work with Chandler and team. What I would say is so nearbound.com is everything's free. podcasts, newsletters, all those things. If you want to like direct link to the book, it's nearboundbook.com. And then feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Jared Fuller, JaredFuller.
Cool. I realized we weren't connected on LinkedIn, so I sent you a connection request while we were on this interview. Guys, check out the book, nearboundbook.com. You can go to nearbound.com to check out the company, a bunch of free resources. Jared, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Good luck, y'all.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you could be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.